Hi, everybody. How you doing? I know I said I wasn't going to do a Friday show, but today I find myself with a little bit of free time, and as I'm packing and getting ready to come back down to Florida from Ohio, I thought to myself, I do have time to at least talk a little about what I've seen the last couple of days, starting with the Browns, and then, of course, the season opener for the Cavaliers. Uh, there is a lot of emotion surrounding the Cleveland Browns and changes since we spoke last. Let's delve into the main ones. First of all, Kevin Stefanski dropping the bomb that he would no longer be calling plays and that Ken Dorsey will. Now, he said that's entirely his decision. I don't believe that. I don't think anybody believes that. Uh, he had been adamant up to that point with the fact that the team was in a better situation when he called the plays. That suddenly changed, which tells me that it's higher up that's involved in that. And it really reeks of Jimmy Haslam and his meddling. Kevin Stefanski, this is the first peg down that he's taken as head coach of the Cleveland Browns since he began back in 2020. It's a rather difficult time because it comes at a time when Deshaun Watson is no longer going to be able to play and probably won't play ever again for the Cleveland Browns. That DTR is partially injured in his finger, and that Jameis Winston, who hasn't started a game in 2 years, has to start. So this is not exactly the best time in the world to be suddenly named the play caller amidst all of this. You will remember that we had a similar problem when Freddie Kitchens was handed the reins for play calling and how everything looked better because he seemed to be more in touch with the type of players that he had and what players might thrive from that circumstance. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other who's going to thrive and what with this Cleveland Browns team, but again, what we ended up doing, not we, but Jimmy Haslam ended up saying, oh, well, then Freddie Kitchens is our next head coach. And we know how that went. But without dwelling too much on the past, it does remind us of some things that happened in the not so distant past. As far as the play calling is concerned, anybody with eyes could see that Kevin Stefanski was clearly distressed on the sidelines each time players would line up in the wrong place, that he had to burn timeouts to get them in the right place. And basically at the podium, he even stood up and said, I only have 40 seconds down there to call plays, and maybe I'm juggling too much. The things that I've been saying for a couple of years about Stefanski is trying to be a one-man band when the name of the game is delegation. You're supposed to have competent people around you that you delegate to, and that's how any effective business person or operational director would work. He was trying to do everything himself, and it's just not a feasible situation, especially in a year where you bring somebody in as an offensive coordinator for the first time and say, we're going to employ your system. And the entire team didn't look like it knew what that system was from day one, week one. It's an awkward situation, but implementation of whatever this offense is supposed to be hasn't been accomplished. And I suppose there are reasons for that are beyond my knowledge. The word that was coming out from Jason Lloyd of The Athletic was that it was not Stefanski's idea to stop calling plays, and I believe that. And I don't have any knowledge about the veracity of what Jason Lloyd is saying, but if you look at it, and you don't have to look at it very deep, a guy who literally a week before was completely adamant that he would not discuss the possibility of giving up play calling suddenly just walks up to the podium, and it's not the first thing he mentions. It's something that gets squeezed out of him in the middle of the press conference. And they said, so you're going to be calling plays again? Or is Ken going to be doing that? And he's like, no, Ken will be calling the plays. And it's like, nah, when did that happen? Ring, ring, ring. Hello. Yes, Mr. Hassel. Yes. Yeah. May I call you Jimmy? No. Okay. I understand. And when is this? Now. It's going to start now. That's kind of, I think, the way it went. So, what does that mean? Who knows? There are plays that obviously haven't been used. The ones that throw the ball to Jerry Jeudy. Oh my God. And this really is what leads me into the most important part of what I want to say today, because there has been a falling out between the Browns team, the Browns fans, and the Browns team. And the notion of how much were they cheering Deshaun Watson's injury? And my feeling is that there were a good number of people cheering it. And I'm not going to quantify it by numbers, because you looked at the play and I don't think anybody immediately said, yes, he tore his Achilles. I don't think that was the way it worked. It looked like he just kind of stumbled to the ground. When you see it again, you realize what happened. And people who are way back in the stands couldn't possibly see that. The dead giveaway is that when DTR was announced, everybody started screaming and cheering, like, thank God the other guy's gone. And nobody in their right mind would want to have DTR on the field over Deshaun Watson. But we've reached a point of incredulity where people are doing and saying things that don't make any sense. I think this is where the whole story of, well, people were cheering Deshaun Watson's injury. Some were, some weren't. But obviously the players on the field heard it pretty damn well. So now we have, I guess, a stab back by players. You had Shelby Harris stand up in front of the press and say that there's no reason why fans should ever do that it's unacceptable, and basically came out and said the fans have lost us. And that was one of the most stupid things that a big fat slob could possibly say. Let me explain to you that I am a real supporter of players, because they're the ones who risk their lives and limbs to play the game. And I put more on players than I do on fans, because all fans do is wager some money and spend a couple hours in front of their TV and maybe listen to a podcast or two to find out what's going on with the team. I don't equate fans and athletes equally. And it was funny, the last program evoked such a negative reaction from one viewer that he posted about 10 times and in increasingly insulting ways. And it doesn't bother me, because what he said at the end was, I said to him, look, you're not on the team, you're a fan. And there's a big difference between being a fan and being a player. The players are a fraternity. They eat at the same places. They drink at the same places. They hang out together. And it's across the board in sports. The baseball players hang out with baseball players. Football players hang out with football players. And they're all part of a fraternity. The fans are not part of that fraternity. The fans make up a fraternity of their own. And some fans believe some things and some fans believe other things. But it's a completely different thing. And sometimes I think the fans get too involved and they mistake the fact that they're not in the game. And I don't know how that happens. We're all spectators. The way I put it to him was he's basically no different than the fans who were in the stands in ancient Rome for the gladiators. You're there to cheer one guy getting stabbed, another guy getting injured, whatever. But cheering and doing are two different things. When I wrote this nameless person and you can go back to the archive and you can see who he is, basically said, if I had my way, I wish that I were talented enough that I would be able to play that game. And I told him he was crazy. I don't know anybody who wishes to lose 25 years of their productive lives to play a silly game. And look, I know the money, but no, it's not worth that. I mean, I'll never make anywhere near the money that Deshaun Watson made. I didn't make money in my career anywhere near what these athletes are making who stay in the league for a couple of years. That's the bottom line. But I have my faculties. I'm 67 years old. I still have my faculties. And, when I see people like Steve Gleason and people who are disabled and the premature death of so many NFL players and the brain damage from Bernie Kosar on down, I don't wish that on anybody. And I have to question the sanity of a fan who would say something like that. You're not thinking. If your life is so meaningless to you that you wish you were that talented so you could be the object of what the fans are watching, that's a projection issue. You have a psychological problem. I mean, the idea is we do what we can with our lives and we enjoy our lives, and as a hobby we watch the games. That's and we like to kind of cheer for our favorite team and get disappointed when our favorite team doesn't do well. But what Shelby Harris said is way out of line. What did he think? Let's state for the record that fans are not players and they're there just to react to what they're seeing. How in the hell else are they expected to react when they're watching a team that doesn't even know the plays that are being called, where to line up? They're jumping off sides. They're making ridiculous mistakes. They're dropping passes. They're missing tackles by the bunch. They're being penalized double digits per game, up to 100+ yards in penalties alone. They can't run the football. They're not blocking people. What are the fans supposed to say? How are they supposed to feel? Now, if you're a player and you're Shelby Harris or Myles Garrett or any of them, you got to be fucking kidding me. Y'all suck. You're not on the same page. We know you can do better. We've seen you do better. But now you're doing worse. And for a lot of reasons, in the case of the offensive line, the men were too old, too crippled to come back. And the Browns did nothing about it as an organization. They tried to play hurt, and their bodies didn't react well to that. And they're back down flat on their ass. Guys like Nyheim Hines, who were supposed to, that's the running back out of the backfield who can catch passes. He's not going to play ever for the Cleveland Browns. They just made sure they announced that he was not activated. His 21-day window is over with. He's gone for the season. So I see Steven has jumped into this early last-minute program. Hi, Steven. How you doing?
Hey, Moo, what's going on, man? I see you started a little earlier than usual.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to do a show, to be very honest with you. I wasn't going to, but there's time now available to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So I wanted to clarify a lot of what I said in the aftermath of what players were saying now about the fans. And so when they have player after player, and Jameis Winston tried to assuage things, but he was also explaining that, his teammates are his brothers in arms, in essence, that they only can relate to the danger and the violence in which they're playing. And I completely agree with him on that.
Same.
But at the same time, there is never a reason to cheer an injury. There's never a reason for that. I mean,
and I don't agree with that either. They put a soundbite in there that said, like, you deserve it. They stole it from the WWE. I saw it and I first thought it was real, and then I had to go back and look at the comments, and they're like, no, they didn't chant that. It was like somebody had put that in there. But yeah, there were some fans cheering. There were some fans that weren't. And for the fans that were cheering, this is not the first time you've seen this. I've seen this in other sports, especially in basketball, where a player goes down, grabbing his ankle, the opposing team's fans start cheering and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I agree with it, but this is not uncommon. This has happened before, but I don't like Deshaun Watson. I think he has a bad attitude. I think he brought a lot of this heat on it himself. I think that however, I think that the injury wasn't an excuse for people to boo. I mean, for people to cheer. But like again, Deshaun brought a lot of this on himself too.
Yeah, and I would agree. This is like a perfect storm. Here's your perfect storm. You have a football player who's arrogant. Deshaun Watson is arrogant and thinks he's deserving of. Nobody is deserving of anything. You can't even guarantee health from year to year. So right off the bat, there is no reason to be entitled. Second of all, he's a person who walks around with an emotionless look on his face and is not a leader of men. He's more a spender of his own money. Consequently, he's putting on all these wild outfits and he's living the life of Riley, and he's not registering any of the negativity associated with how badly he's playing and how badly the team's playing.
It almost kind of reminds you of Johnny Manziel. It doesn't this almost kind of give you a reminder that he kind of dressed funny, did his own thing. He was a party goer. Maybe he didn't have a negative attitude, but he was always a party goer, didn't really take football seriously.
Watson is
kind of reminds you of that.
Watson just is very bland in his, he's not fiery and emotional. He isn't the kind of guy who goes up to teammates and tries to make teammates better. He's not a vocal leader. He's not well-spoken.
Thank you.
I think that these things all factor in, and fans will draw an image of somebody predicated upon what their general facial expressions and attitudes are.
And especially when fans are invested in ticket sales and jersey sales for a player to be getting $250 million and basically giving up the house and 5 years of their franchise worst picks to get him, only for him to turn around and still have this kind of like those issues. And I think from fans, they're kind of like, fuck this guy. I'm not saying, again, it's right to cheer him on, but Deshaun Watson brought a lot of this on himself.
Well, I think that he took a victim role in this, and it was, and what I will say is this: whenever you're in a position where you're fooling around with multiple women and the women are advertising massage services on Instagram, they know where the gravy train is located, and they will find the gravy train. That is the way social media is.
And let's be honest, the massage could also be a hidden term for happy endings. It's like you go to a massage parlor and it has a happy ending for an extra cost. Deshaun could have already had known that. He could have already known that these women were well known. He could have been tipped off by friends and said, hey, these women give extra services for an extra cost. Well, hey, I have the money. Why not give them a call?
But that just makes him stupid, because it was publicized that he had $230 million guaranteed dollars, and you leave that in the hands of somebody else. I would not want my dick in somebody's hands who had that interest at heart. And be sure that every one of those women did the act, and none of them had to.
So, Mr. Muad, do you think this is a case where Deshaun Watson, he carried that bad attitude from Houston and then went to the Browns, thought it could work, and I guess he doesn't want to play football through his body language, you can tell. And maybe just even with the whole contract and everything, he was just mentally done. And I think Browns fans didn't see it.
No, I think that the second he saw that somebody was dumb enough to give him that kind of guaranteed money, and I'm just being real open about this.
Jimmy Haslam.
I think that immediately changed his attitude. He didn't work hard after that. I don't think that he cared as much. I think that when he was with the Texans, they were referring to him that, he was going to be the next great quarterback, and nobody believed that once he came to Cleveland. And the microscope on Cleveland, it's really interesting. Pat McAfee, who is a guy who is a Browns hater, it doesn't matter what the story is, he would find out if one of the players had a pimple on his ass.
Oh,
And
he's
he
one of
would,
those same old Brown storytellers.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
That's facts.
So Pat McAfee is a guy who's now moved away from the Deshaun Watson story because he can't milk any more negativity out of that now. And what he's doing instead is he's saying now the Browns fans, the Browns players are against one another, and what a lousy thing it is to be a Browns fan. And then he's going like this: Have I getting to you? Am I getting to you? And he is a cancer. The type of podcast that he runs is pathetic. And if he were in front of me, I would tell him he's a pathetic human being, because it's like you're not analyzing anything. It's not hard to throw gasoline on a fire and get a bigger fire.
Well,
That's not hard to do.
Well, it's no different than the NFL having the referees throwing controversial calls to say the same old Browns. It's no different than all these other podcasters or other analysts that are covering Browns games and taking turns shitting on them. I mean, I'm not saying what he's saying is right, but this is just a microcosm of same old Browns. The misery loves company. This is a great storyline. This pushes people to watch how bad the Browns can do. How creative can they lose the next week? And there's money to be made off the misery.
Well, and I can tell you this. I mean, you take movies in history that were noted as terrible movies, and they got more critical reaction than movies that were pretty good, but not great. But I mean, yes, misery loves company, and that has always been the case. And I try not to run a program that goes that way. I just try to say, this is how I'm seeing something. You can see it the way you want. But each time the page turns, I'm saying, now, wait a minute here. Deshaun Watson wasn't totally in the wrong when the women were making money jacking him off, okay? They couldn't get anywhere in a regular legal court, so they went into a civil trial and accepted money. They all signed non-disclosure agreements to settle for that money, so they would never have to be in front of cameras again, and nobody would ever have to talk to them again, and nobody has. So they got clean money just like Deshaun did, guaranteed money from a court, and then they were never heard from again. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they're up to. Nobody's checking on them to see if they're still doing it under a different name. We don't know those things, okay?
Hey, check this out. Those women fleeced Deshaun, then Deshaun fleeced Jimmy, Jimmy then in return fleeced the truck drivers.
Well, and he's trying to fleece the Northeast Ohio into paying for his silly dome. So you've got that, all right? But when the players start talking shit about the fans, I don't know if you have an extended family. I grew up in a lot of my extended family were my mother's side of the family in New York City. And the thing about Jewish people from New York City who are relatives is you could always bet that there was a war between 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them. And you never knew at any given point in time who were the good guys and who were the bad guys.
Mr. Muhead, my dad's Jewish and his family also lives in New York. And this is also, you just described my dad's side of the family in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a nonstop war. And there is no attrition because 2 people will make up, then 2 others become polarized. So right off the bat, you don't even know who to cheer for. It's like, well, gosh, is Grandpa right or is Uncle Ike right?
Yeah.
But who's telling the truth and who's not telling the truth?
We live in a society called every man for himself.
Well, yeah. And so when I look at a situation, I like the extended family situation is just a clusterfuck, and it's never going to change. The only way it changes is if you just walk away from the whole thing and you say, I'm just not going to get in the middle of that, and, if I see my extended family, I'm just not going to talk about the others to the others. I'll just spend my time with the people I'm with and have a good time and be nice. And you just kind of beg out of that. The problem that we're seeing right now with the Browns is that this is the worst of all organizations in the National Football League. And the reason is it's poison. the whole organization has gotten to the point where the poison didn't just hit because of Deshaun Watson. I mean, even if Deshaun Watson didn't spend time, fighting off, the lawsuits, he hadn't played in such a long time. We didn't get the guy who played for Houston. He was by the time, I'm looking at him now, he's 30 years old. He's had multiple major injuries. One's with his shoulder, two with his legs. He's done.
The last time Deshaun played football, Moo, was 2020. So since then, he hasn't played football and doesn't care to play.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, 30 years of age, he might as well be 45. He doesn't have that in him. And if you don't believe me, look at Tiger Woods. And without talking personalities, Tiger Woods decided, I'm going to rehab this and I'm going to rehab that. And you know what I'm going to do to stay in condition? I'm going to do Navy SEAL training. And he destroyed his own knees and his own back by doing Navy SEAL workouts in heavy boots. Now, that's just not normal. There is a self-loathing in this where, and now Tiger won't quit. He won't stop. He's never going to catch Jack Nicklaus because he can't play golf anymore. He can't even make it through a tournament without his back going out. He's had 8 microdiscectomies on his spine. He's had a fusion in his spine. He can't hit the ball with these guys anymore distance-wise, and his back by the 4th round is ruined.
I think what it is, he's just like one of those, the Eli Manning type of guys where they just don't want to leave when they're supposed to, and they think they can still do it, and they kind of drag the team and the organization based on past experience or past success, and just, his mind is telling him what his body's not.
Well, I think that he doesn't know what to do. That if he wasn't Tiger Woods, the famous golfer, that he just can't settle back down and become a regular person. And I think from a Deshaun Watson perspective, the $230 million is the payday of what he put his body through in Houston. I completely understand that.
He secured the bag.
But, the bottom line is he's the kind of guy who's not going to invest his money properly. And he's the kind of guy who's not going to be a successful businessman coming out of professional football. And he will continue to try to play like Tiger's trying to play golf, and he won't be able to do it anymore. But there's dysfunction in people like this. And obviously, Deshaun Watson has dysfunction. The women who were doing what they were doing had dysfunction, and the fans have dysfunction. The Browns front office is created an environment where this dysfunction is just like the extended Jewish family in New York City, to tie it all together. The fans don't like the players don't like the fans. The fans don't like the owner doesn't care about the fans. The people in Cleveland inner city are pissed off because they're going to Brook Park. This idiot Haslam,
each other. Yeah.
Idiot Haslam has created such a bunch of dissension between all the different elements involved in this team and organization. So when a player like Shelby Harris walks up to a camera and says, I don't know, the fans have lost us. Now, I mean, I listened to him say this, and, I wanted just to do what Topaz says. My dog Topaz. Whenever I take Topaz to the vet, and he don't want to go to the vet because no doggy wants to have a finger stuck up his ass, okay? He doesn't want to go to the vet, and he sees that we're going to walk in the door, and he walks in, but he tries to scurry out of the door. And what he says is, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Well, that's what Shelby Harris is saying. And the Browns players who like Myles Garrett, who are standing up and saying, the fans, you're bad for doing this. Well, you know what I'm going to say? Well, the players are bad for performing the way they're playing. That's not professional. You didn't learn your schemes. The head coach is going to pay for it. The offensive coordinator is going to pay for it. Jimmy doesn't pay for anything because people pay Jimmy. So the bottom line is the fans aren't going to be happy. Stefanski's not going to be happy. You're going to have all of this dissension around the organization. And it's all because the guy who owns the team hired a baseball guy to do analytics for football. And because you have too much involvement of an owner who doesn't know what he's doing and who's a crook. And he has dysfunction at the highest level. So,
you know what would have been my response if he would have told me that, the Browns fans lost us? I would have responded. I would have said, well, actually, technically, you've lost the Cleveland Browns have lost us.
Well, that's what they're saying back.
Cleveland Browns had moved before insurrection. So technically, this isn't our Browns team. This is an imposter team, an alternate universe where they keep losing. So, yeah, you are right.
No, I mean, that's, and Jim is in the chat room. It's absolutely 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, but nobody says anything bad about the Niners. You have to remember that Browns is what Pat McAfee and his band of idiots are waiting for, because the basketball season hasn't begun yet. So Pat McAfee can't lick whoever's ass he's told to lick in the NBA. Can't start that. And the football season, he's got to get interest going, and he can only, fillet Lamar Jackson so many times. So how do you get the most immediate bang for your buck? You just rip on the Browns. But that's absolutely true. There are other trades that are just as bad. And draft picks like Ryan Leaf. Every team makes bad deals. But the convergence of one bad decision on top of another after another is uniquely Haslam-esque.
Well, Mr. Moohead, the Pittsburgh Pirates, you can compare them to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns are like the Pirates of baseball, right? Pirates have been in complete dismantled for the last 40, 50 years, the whole Barry Bonds saga and not keeping him and, that ordeal.
Well, and Jim's going to go on. Hi, Bronk. How you doing?
Wow.
Jim is saying that Stefanski is waving the white flag. Here's what I think. I think that Stefanski, 2020 and 2023 Coach of the Year, he's proven he can do a job.
Yes.
And he wants to get the hell out of Cleveland. I think Shelby Harris wants to get the hell out of Cleveland. I think Myles Garrett wants to get the hell out of Cleveland. I think all of them see the dysfunction they're in the middle of, and they're the source of ridicule by every talking head on the networks. They just want to start over, and they'll suddenly become great. All they have to do is join the Steelers or the Ravens or whoever the other the Chiefs. You can. I mean, I had somebody trying to convince me how great the Kareem Hunt was playing for the Chiefs. He's averaging 3 yards a carry. That's not great.
No,
I mean, Derrick Henry's playing great for the Ravens.
Oh yeah,
but no, not Kareem Hunt. You can't make an argument that every player who leaves the Browns suddenly becomes great, or else Donovan Peoples-Jones would still be in the fucking league playing somewhere.
Hollywood Higgins, whole loads of people.
A bunch of them. But no, I mean, where's Anthony Schwartz? Where did he catch on? Again, no, the fans are just being overly emotional, like the extended family people in a Jewish family. They don't want to hear anything. They just want to scream at the top of their lungs. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. I'm not that emotionally invested, It's not that big a deal.
All right, so obviously I'm late to this show because you started early. But so I don't want to go over old ground. But this Ken Dorsey play calling thing, smacks to me so much of a D and Jimmy Haslam marketing ploy to try to get what few remaining fans are still on side to stay on side. Because why would you do that against the Ravens, who have got the best defense historically in the league, and do it before a fucking bye week? I mean, it doesn't even make remote.
The blame game starts at the top. We all know that there's the guy at the top, Jimmy,
who's an
idiot, then he pushes the shit ball over the mountain
And it gets bigger and bigger,
and it crushes the people below. All right. And who does it hit on the way down? Well, Stefanski is in a situation where if he said, damn it, I want to call the plays, and that's all there is to it, and then, woo, you're fired, you motherfucker.
Exactly.
Jimmy Haslam doesn't care. He's a fucking lunatic. He does not care.
That's exactly what it sounded like. It sounded like there was an ultimatum given and that you had to give up the play calling, Kevin,
Yeah. And so Stefanski wants to say, I mean, a week ago he said, no, I have no intention of giving up play calling. And then all of a sudden he's giving up play calling.
I'm giving up play calling. Woo!
Yeah, well, but you see, what Kevin's doing is smart. It's Ivy League smart. Because he knows that somebody in the league will hire him as a head coach.
Correct.
And if he came out and said, I'm not going to give up the play calling, and then he would get sucked into this vortex. He doesn't want that. He's going to be a good citizen until he leaves.
And it's a lot like these politicians, like when Nixon was going right into his final tumble, all the rats left the sinking ship. And then in England, when Boris Johnson was on the way out, all the rats left the sinking ship, and that's the stage where we're at with the Browns. That the Stefanski, they're all going out.
There's an unrelatable factor to all of this. I mean, you can point out that he owes dead money to somebody and got to keep paying, and then he has to hire a second person, and he's paying multiple people at the same time. But let me tell you something. If you had as much money as Jimmy Haslam, you'd be wiping your ass with dollar bills. Okay?
Correct.
It doesn't matter to him.
There's no consequence for him. There's none whatsoever.
There is no incompetence, Jim. In the mind of Jimmy Haslam, he looks at the profit and loss statement, and he's making so much money. It doesn't matter how bad the decisions are. The money just keeps flowing in. Yeah. So you're not going to make an argument that of course the incompetence as far as bad decisions will go on, but he's making more money than he's ever made in his life, and he'll never let go of this unless I'd say if they catch him with a hooker, but even then, Robert Kraft. I mean, let's be honest. Robert Kraft did the same exact thing Deshaun Watson did, and he had the balls to drive his own limousine, have his own limousine driven to a goddamn sex shop. Hold it, for a sex shop with slave labor in a Korean hand shack, a Jack Shack, and gets busted on film, and they destroy the film for him. Whoa! Not that anybody wanted to see his shriveled old man dick, but the bottom line is he's protected. So is Jimmy. Jimmy's got his fraternity of brothers.
Facts.
Another 31 owners in the league.
Yeah, and what's going to happen?
His fraternities, guys, and just like the guys in the league, their teammates are the ones who are in the foxhole with them.
Yeah.
Who do the fans have?
No one.
And that's it. Themselves. So you've got so many Browns fans that they have a loud voice and they're frustrated and they're angry. And I don't blame them for being frustrated. I just want to clarify that expressing your frustration by cheering a player who's injured, for those who did, and everyone's backing out of that right now and saying, well, I didn't do that. Well, a good number of people did, and that's not acceptable. That's not fandom anymore. That's just blind hate.
That's being cruel.
That's not good. But frustration is definitely legitimate, as reason and cause. And you should be as frustrated as you want to be because you're the one paying the bills. I mean, you're the ones paying to watch the games. You're the one.
Yeah, as long as you're still going to the games, now it comes back on the fans. Are you still going to attend the games knowing all this?
You're literally, I mean, spending your time hours tailgating, going out to places and getting drunk and being with your buddies, and every Sunday on your calendar is taken care of because you've got football season and you've put every bit of oomph into your cheering for your team. And when it goes bad, you're going to put every bit of negativity. And I understand that. But you can't cheer a man who's crippled. You can't do
I agree.
it.
Can't
Well,
cheer an injury.
Getting back to these owners, right? Dee and Jimmy are both older than you and I are. They're 70 years old. And Bob Kraft and Jerry Jones and all these other elderly owners that are horrible in the NFL, they have no intention of selling unless they're forced. What they're going to do is they're going to fucking die of old age. And then some idiot son of theirs is going to inherit the team and the culture is going to continue. So do you want Jimmy Haslam the fourth or Jimmy Haslam the fifth running this team 20 fucking years from now? And it's
you have no choice. You can't take it away from him. The only thing that the NFL could do is if they found something because they wanted to weed him out.
They wanted to weed him out, yes. And I'm sure there's compromise that he's done, that they probably got, that they're ready to use at some point to get rid of him when the time comes that they have to get rid of him.
Boohead and Bronk, don't you think that the NFL kind of loves this storyline? In a sense, they're like, no, keep it going, keep it going, Jimmy. Woo!
Well, no, I mean, for me, guy like Sterling, who was the owner of the Clippers, the NBA wanted him out for the longest time, and they finally got dirt on him. But something? Nobody talks about him and talked about him afterwards. Not like Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was like literally an attractant for every bit of negativity in the world. He became the center of sin in America. And I don't know how that happens, because the bottom line is, and Jim is correct, Jerry Jones has all kinds of illegitimate children, and nobody questions Jerry Jones about that because they're America's team. And you have to understand that there's a pecking order in all of this, and you got to keep your nose super clean when you're in Cleveland, because it becomes part of a narrative, and that narrative has been going on for decades and decades.
It's just unreal, man. And I don't want to see Jimmy Haslam the fifth.
Well, then they chased Snyder out too in Washington, right?
Right. Yeah. When they want you out,
they'll get you out.
They'll find a way. Absolutely. And they'll have a new owner all lined up, and you name it, they'll get it.
Yeah.
Hey, Washington's turned around since then too.
Yeah. Except they found out what it's like for their star quarterback to go down with a rib injury, and you don't know when the good fortune is going to end. You don't know. And, the Commanders, good for them. I'm glad that a new owner has taken them in a new direction. But you knew as long as Daniel Snyder was there, they were going to continue to lose. You know that as long as Woody Johnson is in New York, that Aaron Rodgers is going to end up crippled and injured. And, now they're 2-5. They're out of the running, basically. And now Rodgers is being grilled by the press, and they're having all kinds of problems trying to figure out what's gone wrong with their offense and why this is happening. Well, I'll tell you why it's happening. They put an unqualified man as head coach. They had to get Saleh out of there. This is what Woody Johnson does. Woody is a premature ejaculator, just like Jimmy Haslam is. He's proactive in such a destructive way. Why Saleh? It's like, why would you fire him right then and there and put somebody in, and then the person you put in there, it was supposed to hires a guy who's an offensive coordinator, Hackett, who sucks. His record hasn't been good recently with his offensive schemes. And now you're wondering why it's not working in New York. It's not working because the owner is not functional.
Correct.
That's why.
Yeah.
You know what? People have had this long narrative about these NBA teams and NFL teams being like slave plantations. What I think is actually closer to the truth is that they are
Wow.
like absolute monarchies, and you've
Yeah.
got this all powerful medieval king and queen running your team, and they'll have their little ministers like their Thomas Moores and their Cardinal Wolseys, in place. Their guys who'll tell them what they want to hear, and then the country either succeeds or the country gets invaded and gets conquered and gets shit on. Now you have the odd great monarchy where the king is called Catherine the Great or Great whatever, and then you have 80% of them are shit. So what are you going to have in your city?
I'll tell you one other thing that I know, and I'm going to say this about Donald Trump and about Kamala Harris, that they both want the money. They both want the fame. They both want the notoriety that goes with being the president. Kamala wants to be the first woman president, and that is what drives her, and it's written all over her face. All politicians are opportunistic. Donald Trump wants to continue being a businessman, even though his real estate magnate days are long gone because he was too poor to invest in New York City realty and real estate anymore. The bottom line was he had to reinvent himself by becoming a shill on The Apprentice, and that's how that built him, again, a mythological program that reminded people that, oh, he was a businessman, and that's how he maintained his image.
Yeah.
The bottom line is the fans who are complaining the most do the same fucking thing that Jimmy Haslam's doing.
Well, that's what our society is. It's just everybody wants to be the next Jimmy Haslam. There's no honor, integrity. Remember, that's why you set that guy off that one time when you talked about this. That's why that one guy that kept commenting you were referring to earlier in the video, because you were talking about this. People don't want to be in power anymore to do the right thing. They just want to be the next crook or the next criminal or the next Godfather or the next, mafia boss.
If you had a situation where you didn't know what in the hell you were doing as the owner of the Cleveland Browns, but the paychecks just kept coming in, and all you had to do was provide a lousy product that upset millions of fans, that upset every player to the point where they didn't want to come to Cleveland. And the only thing you had to do to keep the checks rolling in was to keep the NFL at bay, to keep them happy with you.
Shock value.
Just to be a happy loser.
Yep.
And be no trouble. See, Daniel Snyder was a problem. He opened his mouth and he became a problem. And Donald Sterling became a problem, for the NBA. If you just keep your mouth shut, you'll stay there forever. You'll make more money than you could ever make. And you all would do the same damn thing that Haslam's doing.
Well, it's the shock value, right? So Jimmy Haslam creates that shock value that keeps the fans coming. Fans love a good reality
I don't think he's
TV show.
Smart.
Like
I don't think he's that smart to do that, man. I don't think he's that smart.
Well, we are glutton for our own punishment. Essentially, that's how we are in the society.
Now, you know something, Tom? I mean, just like when in 2K, everything was going to get
fall.
Yeah. The computers wouldn't function. Everything would go haywire. Rumor is, and you know what? Rumor is from people who feel that the presidential election is not going to be fair. Okay?
No matter who wins, they're going to feel it's going to be that
Let
way.
me explain something to you. There's one thing that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris do have in common. And the guy who was complaining the show said I should stay in my own lane, not talk about politics. Well, my lane is that I am an American citizen. And I'm just telling you the truth because I don't have allegiances. I have social allegiances that I believe in certain things and that I'm socially liberal. Okay. But fiscally, I'm very conservative. I don't have big party affiliation. But what I can tell you is that the similarity between Trump and Kamala Harris is when you ask them a point blank question, they never answer it specifically. Never answer it specifically. Everything with Trump is, well, we gotta get more electricity. We gotta get more electricity. We're gonna more coal. We're gonna get more energy, the likes of which you've never seen, and then it goes off in another direction.
China's fault. China.
Yeah. And Kamala Harris will stand up there and say, what are you gonna do for the common people? Well, I was a common person. I worked at McDonald's. And it's just not answering the question. Do you want to know why they're not answering the question?
Why?
Because they're not going to make the decisions is what's happening. Both of these people, there's not going to be a cyber attack on November 5th, Tom Hawley. You know what there's going to be? There has already been an attack on the freedom of American people. And the fact of the matter is that the people who own both candidates are going to get their way, and it doesn't matter. They try to draw a dividing line with social issues, whether it's abortion or guns or whatever they want to make it out.
Or gender identity or war. Should we donate to the war? This and that. Yeah.
It's the same people in charge, no matter who you vote for of these two. They're controlled by the same exact people, and middle class people are going to get dumped on, and the wealthy will get wealthier. Okay,
absolutely.
That's why they can't answer a question, because they have no specifics, because they do what they're told. They're no different than Jimmy Haslam. That's how they make their money.
Actually, they're more like Kevin Stefanski being told by Jimmy Haslam what to do, because their controllers are telling them how they're going to be and what laws they can pass and what laws they can't pass.
I mean, Kamala may try to put a smile on her face, but we know that she is looking for fame. And Donald Trump, has a mean mouth, but he don't have no mean mouth to the people who are controlling him in the White House. Believe me, Barack Obama came and went. Barack Obama became the first black president in the United States, and they tethered him. They made sure that no legislation could be passed because
nothing fucking happened.
Because
nothing fucking happened for 8 years.
Dominated and balanced everything out, so nothing got passed.
Nothing got done. Nothing happened. Nothing got done.
The reason that Roe v. Wade was overturned was not because of a bunch of people who were Republican voters wanted it to happen. It's because whoever it is who's behind the curtain wants that to happen. All right. Yeah. And that will be overturned at some point in time when they want to make the other group of people believe that they're still in the game. But when I look at the score, the way I determine whether my team's ahead or behind is I look at the score. And I look at the score for the average American, and it keeps going down every year. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. And don't tell me that your life was so much easier when Obama was president, or when Trump was president, or when Biden was president, or when, you know what it comes down to? The last time you had a real good time of it was when Clinton was president, and not because of Clinton, but because the tech stocks just, everybody could invest.
Everything exploded. Yeah.
And know what they did? Now they got minimums. You can't just invest as a private citizen anymore, because it's the big houses who are doing all of the big investing, who are putting such enormous sums of money and changing the tide of the stock market.
Facts.
We talk about rigged, like an election is rigged. The stock market is rigged.
Yep.
In election year, now the stock market comes up, and it's like nobody handled the COVID crisis. Nobody handled it. Trump didn't handle it. They were shoveling dead bodies out of New York. And when Biden got in, his people had misinformation. And the reason is they got caught with their pants down, and there was no understanding of what caused the disease to get worse. And we actually killed thousands of people by putting by putting respirators in them when it was the absolute wrong approach. And to this day, Donald Trump says, we did a great thing in COVID. We got the respirators. It's like, you don't even understand. Why don't you just shoot bleach into somebody and kill COVID? You're not a scientist. Don't start. The bottom line is it's all being controlled by a central force. And the people who want to win are winning. And it's no different than Jimmy Haslam. As long as you don't piss those folks off, you go along to get along.
Facts.
You're gonna make your money, but nobody hears the cries of the poor, the indigent, or even the middle class anymore. Nobody. We took
because they're not organized.
Took their jobs away from them. Took their manufacturing jobs away from them. Told them to go to college and get a degree. But what is there? What is there for those people who are already stuck and didn't have a degree?
Yeah.
You think those people can go back to college and feed their families?
Facts.
So, I feel badly for Democrats and Republicans because until y'all realize that we're on the same team and that we should be judging the game not by whether somebody agrees with abortion or gun control, but we look at the score. We're either winning or we're losing, and we are losing.
Yep.
It's that simple. And we have this kind of a shitty choice, a 78-year-old half incoherent fool who threatens people, and a woman who has no experience whatsoever, except that she was a prosecutor and she knows fame when she sees it. And she, all you have to do is watch the documentaries on the Menendez brothers, and you can see what happened to their defense attorney, who thought she could mow the world down and become the most famous defense attorney. And that's what and she totally fucked up. She's unlikable. She became like, how would I put it? She became an unlikable person because she was full of herself. And Kamala Harris, I worked at McDonald's. You're not one of us. You're sucking on the tit now, babe. You're not one of us. You're not working for a living.
It's no different than Donald Trump working at McDonald's for a day. Did you see that crap?
I mean, but that's the whole thing. I mean,
that's stage acting. That's play acting.
And he's not even a good actor. The bottom line is it's all just set up. Yeah, people were saying Kamala Harris won't go on with an impromptu interview. No, because they wanted to stage everything, and it's no different than Trump's people. Because if people knew how vapid and empty-headed these two candidates were, you wouldn't want to have anything to do with them. And you could see right through who the people were who were making the decisions, who were keeping you down. It's just that simple. And this is my lane. This is the most.
It's your show.
No, but this is the most important lane that we drive on. Who wins a fucking football game is nothing compared to the future of people's ability to earn a living and to be able to survive catastrophic inflation. And they should be able to live in houses like we did and our parents did, and they can't now.
Yep.
Young people are staying at home, living with their parents up to 30 years of age. That isn't healthy. That's not, but where else are they going to go? It's either to a low-cost housing apartment kind of setting. Nobody.
Or they're going to have to live with 8 or 9 people and shack up.
Yeah.
And everyone would have to be working. Like California, I saw documentaries on that where people were like, move in 5 or 6 or 7 people to live in one house. Everyone had to have a job. Well,
it's been going that way for the past 40 years. So, I mean,
it's gotten worse now.
We could go into the history of all that, but how long have you got? I imagine you're ready to go down to Florida.
Yeah, I am ready to go. And, but I just want to point out to people that there's a bigger picture. And Browns fans, all of us, we might not agree on everything. One thing we do agree on is we look at the score. We look at the team's record. The reason we all know it's gone down the shitter is we're looking at their record and we're watching them play, and they're terrible.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be better. They weren't supposed to be terrible.
They were supposed to be at least an 8-9 team, not a fucking 2-15 team.
1-16 probably. I don't
And
see
all
them
the
winning
bad
another game.
decisions come down at once and have crushed them. And that's
Bluehead.
what's happened.
Bluehead, do you see the Browns winning another game this year?
No, I don't see any reason why they might accidentally slip into something in a bad weather game. But I mean, no, I think it's pretty clear at this point that they're willing to lose every game they can to try to get some of the draft picks back. While Jimmy and his money guy, Andrew Berry, are trying to figure out a way to extricate themselves from the ironclad contract that they gave to Sean Watson. They're looking for fine print.
Is there any way they can get out of that or no?
They're fucking mice. They might find a way. I mean, mice find ways into walls and out of walls, and you can never figure it out.
Well, Jimmy Haslam being the evil criminal mastermind he is, I'm sure he can figure out a way.
He's not mastermind, though. That's the problem. If he was, he would have gotten out of it by now. But anyway, have you talked about the Cavs yet? I know.
That's what I'm going to do right now.
Okay, let's talk about the Cavs.
Absolutely. And hey, here's John.
Because I listened to the game last night or this morning on WTAM. So there you go.
Hey, John, how you doing?
How's this Lanai doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, we're just starting to talk about the Cavaliers now.
I'm a Laker fan. And I go
Laker fan.
I go
The Laker
across,
fan.
I go across the state. I'm
A liquor fan.
Yankee fan, Laker fan, and diehard Browns.
Sounds like he's saying liquor fan. I'm a fan of liquor.
Well, probably both, really.
Well, you know what I'll tell you is this: that you can suffer with Bronny James, but we, on the other hand, got a first look at the Cleveland Cavaliers against the Raptors.
Oh yeah, they looked good last night.
The Raptors didn't have R.J. Barrett, who is one of their leading scorers.
Yeah.
They didn't have Bruce Brown, but this coach that they brought in, who is from Serbia, I think, this guy challenged a play that any coach in the NBA and any fan would know you can't challenge that play.
Wow.
And
it was like in the fourth quarter or something.
No, it was early in the game. It's like he challenged a play that, and it's like, wait a minute, you can't challenge that, and he didn't even know. And they got off to a good start, or we got off to a bad start. And Darius Garland was not playing good basketball, and but there's a lot of first-time energy that gets burned. Toronto was like a 26-win team last year. They were not good. And I think people were more looking at, Scotty Barnes playing up against, Evan Mobley, the two guys who were drafted side by side, basically, in the draft in the same year. And what we got instead was a glimpse of what's different about Kenny Atkinson's way of doing things. Well, it was a blowout, so 13 people played, but the reality was there was a 10-man rotation. Right. There are guys coming in and coming out. You had Ty Jerome coming in. You had George Niang coming in. You had
Okoro was in.
Okoro, but further back on the bench. You had our sharpshooter who only chucked up 1 3. But why I'm forgetting his name? That's terrible.
Not Sam Merrill.
Sam Merrill, yeah. But he wasn't a factor. Karis LeVert coming off the bench was just on fire. I mean, anything he threw up went in. But the thing that was most interesting to me was that when Darius Garland left the floor in the beginning of the second quarter, because he managed to achieve 3 fouls in a short period of time, and his 4th shortly thereafter. When he came off the floor to start the second quarter, that's where the Cavaliers started making their run. Mm-hmm. And it was Ty Jerome, not Craig Porter Jr. It was Ty Jerome who did something that I thought was significant. And I don't think that Ty Jerome's a great basketball player. Don't get me wrong, but he knows his role. And he distributed that ball into the hands of the right people, got people lined up in the right position, and actually we had a point guard on the floor, which is not the case when we have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland on the floor, when both have been told by the head coach, we want you to shoot more threes this year. Who's looking for the distribution? Nobody's telling Ty Jerome, to take more threes. They're looking at him coming in off the bench as the second point guard to try to get stability and to get the ball into the hands of open players in space on the floor. The other thing that was readily apparent was the utilization of Evan Mobley was dramatically different. They were giving him the ball out front and allowing him. It's funny about Mobley. He has a slow first step, but he's got an incredible long stride. So what they were doing was letting him handle the ball, handing the ball off to him at the top of the key or around the foul line, and letting him get that first long step to get around his man, go to the basket, get fouled, or to throw it off the backboard and bank the shot in. There was one move that really intrigued me when he started to dribble the ball but got stuffed by the defender, which is what happened so many times last year to him. The closer you get put him to the rim and played him like Jared Allen, he's not a center. But he turned around and faded away and used his length to hit a fadeaway. And if he develops a reliable 12 to 15 foot fadeaway, he's going to be dead.
He's unstoppable. Yeah, he'll be unstoppable.
The other thing was he played a great defensive game. He made Scotty Barnes look like, little Scotty from next door. He was blocking shots. He was getting rebounds. He was changing the course of shots. He had, I think, 25 points in 27 minutes played.
Not bad.
8 rebounds in 25 minutes played. So it's not like they had to overuse him to get productivity out of him, but he was taking more shots. That means less reliance on Donovan Mitchell, who was not finishing at the rim as well as he will once he gets into the flow of the regular season. But you look at who else participated in all this. I mean, defensively, Jared Allen was blocking shots. They were not getting anything in the paint. What they were putting in was either quickly from three or Boucher from deep. A lot of that, but they really were not getting second looks at the basket. We were rebounding, forcing them into misses. And they're a 26-game win team from last year, and they're not a great team. But the Cavaliers played with good tempo. The only thing I don't like is if you're going to use Evan Mobley to screen somebody when you're bringing the ball up the court, because they were picking us up in the beginning in the first quarter, full court.
Right.
And that's the way people are attacking Darius Garland, is they're getting up to his pocket. Right.
Because he's small.
Yep. And so they were basically blitzing him half court. So they were bringing Mobley down to screen, but they were giving the ball to Mobley, and Mobley can't bring the ball up. He bounces the ball this fucking high, and he's going to get the ball stolen from him. So there's still things that they have to work on here. But
I'm looking at the stats from the box score, and the amazing thing that jumps out at me is LeVert had 20 minutes and 38 seconds, but he also had 19 points and a plus 19 on his plus minus.
Yep.
I mean, when did that ever happen?
I think for him, he's a hot and cold guy, and he was being given an opportunity to go one-on-one. And he was just beating his man, faking him up.
They were clearing out. They were clearing out.
And the guy was pulling up and making the perimeter shot. He was going into the paint, faking with the head and shoulders. The guy would go way up, and then he would just bank it off the board. Just exploited them that way.
Those
so-
are insane stats, 20, 19, and 19.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
that
that's
is
crazy.
insane.
But again, I think the Cavaliers ended up shooting 33 for the game, not making 30, but shooting 30, and which I've seen NBA teams shoot more threes. But the fact is that the Cavaliers were also playing defense, getting turnovers and turning turnovers into points. And the sequence that led to the end of the first half was just prolific, where we took a 20-point lead and basically, no, I'm sorry, that we took like maybe a 10-point lead and expanded it into a 20-point halftime lead, 69-49 at the half.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at stats. I'm just
that's where I came in. Was right before the half.
Just taking the ball away from and converting the points. A good first game. It's a game that you would expect the Cavaliers to win, but those were games that we would not win last year.
So,
And
Mr. Moo, I know y'all start the first 4 games off on the road this year. Y'all play the Pistons tomorrow, then y'all go at Wizards and at Knicks.
yes,
Oh.
you got to play them all.
Your first home game, you host the Lakers. Amazing schedule you guys have to start the season off.
Well, no, maybe they got the ice capades at Gundarina.
It's all going to make the team. They've got to get used to playing a certain way for a new coach. And look, I'm not going to badmouth JB Bickerstaff. Bickerstaff did what he was told to do in Cleveland. He took a bunch of boys and turned them into men. And once they became men, he didn't know what to do with them. Doing the same thing in Detroit, and Detroit will become a better basketball team with JB Bickerstaff as the coach because they will play better defense. That is a guarantee. You're not going to get floor time if you don't play defense for Bickerstaff. That's the way it works. So I'm happy with what I saw at the Cavaliers. Everybody, of course, would be. But, again, it's not one game that matters. It's, are we going to continue to use Mobley in that way? Will Mobley continue to be assertive and aggressive to get his shot off? And is Darius Garland's shot broken? He was throwing up some air balls and just adding bricks.
My question is this sort of effort from last night sustainable? Is this the way that we're going to be able to play from October all the way till April and May?
Yeah, it's going to be, or we're going to see
play the same way.
Well, they're going to try to play a 10-man rotation if everybody stays healthy. Remember, Max Strus isn't out there, so the 10th player would be, Strus is going to be one of the 10, and one of the guys that you saw as part of that 10-man rotation won't be out.
Jerome and Okoro and
absolutely.
And I'll tell you, Okoro, I think, has fallen in terms of his value to the team because he's back to just being a hard-nosed defensive guy. And to me, it looks like he practiced the hell out of his outside three-point shot. But when it comes down to a game, he tightens up.
They're not giving it to him.
Can't perform it consistently at game pressure. And, he was a $10 million sign and nobody else in the league wanted to offer him anything. That's what it amounts to. So he's going to be a bench player, but how much burn he's going to get, it's going to come down to how healthy players are and who makes the most of the time that they get on the floor. And that's fair. That's the way it should be. So,
well, there you go. There you go. I think that's a good place to end.
Well, before we get out of here, Moo, who do y'all got in the World Series? Dodgers, Yankees starts tomorrow.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care.
I got it to go 7. I got Yankees in 7.
I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
Hey, Moo.
I don't care.
I checked out your Frank Sinatra song when you sang karaoke in the Village. Pretty good.
Not bad for a fat guy. Not bad for a fat guy.
It's up to you, New York, New York.
Absolutely. I mean, But I don't care between Los Angeles and New York.
Who starred in that movie? A lot of people don't realize that came from a movie. That song.
What? New York, New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro.
Yeah. The song is regarded much better than the movie.
Yeah.
That's why nobody knows it came from a movie.
Yeah. But so I'm done, and I'm gone. You're not.
I'm done too. I'm done as well.
You're not going to see me until Sunday, until the halftime.
Sunday.
Okay, so we're not going to have a Friday show then.
No, we're not going to have a show tomorrow. I gotta get out of Dodge, so I'm doing all.
Okay, so we will have a Sunday show right at halftime and the post game.
Halftime and post game on Sunday, right?
Yes.
So how's Topaz getting down? What's happening with Topaz?
Topaz is being transported by a close friend of mine and his brother.
All right.
So he'll have chauffeur service.
All right.
Nice.
Hey, you're coming down to great weather right now, Moo.
Yeah, I heard the weather is broken down there. You're getting lows in the 60s now.
Yeah, I got my doors open to air out the place.
That's a good idea.
I haven't run my AC now in probably a week and a half.
Oh wow!
You're not just sitting there farting or something, are you?
Well, probably not bathing or anything.
I got the fireplace going.
All right.
All right. Well, all right. To each his own, or as they say in San Francisco, to each his gown. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. I'll be back with you on Sunday from a warmer climate and destination. Until then, hasta la vista, pasture heads. Good night.
See you later.